Welcome to The Problematic Gaze with me, Dr. Lee Arnott.
And me, Dave Moore.
Each episode we take a piece of pop culture from yesteryear and ask ourselves the question, could you get away with it today? And if not, why not? And what that says about society and culture then and now.
And before we take a deep dive into our chosen topic, we'll look at the news events of the day, and we'll also look at the TV landscape and the pop charts, just to put our chosen topic and the year into context. So, Dr. Lee, how are you?
Very good, are you?
Yes, very good, very good. I'm knee-deep in dessert recipes at the moment, going for dinner at a neighbour's house tomorrow.
Okay.
The only note I've had is that they don't like chocolate very much, which strikes me as rather odd. But there we go. So I'm thinking at the moment, bread and butter pudding.
I was just thinking about bread and butter pudding yesterday. Isn't that weird? I love a bread and butter pudding.
I just adore it. Hubby doesn't like it so much because it's got sultanas in it, but never mind.
Yes, he's not good with the dried fruit, is he?
No, he's not fussy though.
No.
What have you been up to?
Not much, darling. Just preparing ourselves for Wednesday. We won't mention it again, but it is the Independent Podcast Awards coming up. Just preparing ourselves for that. And that's the last time we're going to mention it, isn't it?
Yeah, apart from one thing.
Yeah.
What are you wearing?
I'm going to keep that under wraps, actually. It's going to be very sharp, and I'm going to put pictures on our socials when we're in our glad rags, hopefully with a cluster of awards in our hands.
Or sobbing gently onto each other's shoulders.
Slumped at the bar.
Yeah.
Really bitter and angry.
Yeah. Congratulations. You so deserve it. So what are we talking about today?
Well, we've got a big one today. We are looking at the behemoth that was Game of Thrones. Yes. Now, what is your relationship with Game of Thrones, Dave?
As you well know, I've got you to thank for introducing me to Game of Thrones. When we lived together in our little flat above a hairdresser's called Gorgeous, you said to me, have you ever watched Game of Thrones? It's like, no, it didn't really appeal to me. And then you presented me with a box set of the first 5 seasons. You said, give the first couple of episodes a go, see how you get on. And I did. And from that moment on, I was absolutely hooked. I luxuriated in the first 5 seasons, and I could watch them at my leisure. I could watch 3 or 4 in a row. Just gripped. Intrigue, the political machinations. It was great. It really drew me in. And I'd say to anybody who hasn't watched Game of Thrones and is put off by the fantasy element, dragons and all that kind of thing, just give it a go, because it's much more kind of along the lines of House of Cards, Successions. It's all about relationships at the end of the day and the depths people can go to, the lower end of human nature, but also the heroism, valiance. That's what it's about for me. And I was gripped all the way through. What about you?
Yes, I had a similar experience. I think it was season 3 I caught up with it. Similar kind of experience. Watched the box sets, devoured them, loved it until, for me, the final couple of seasons start to go off the rails a bit, and it kind of loses all its internal logic, which it carefully built up. I still enjoyed it, but yeah, I was a huge fan. So the episode we looked at is episode 1. It's called Winter is Coming. It was broadcast in the UK on the 17th of April, 2011. Gosh, it seems like a long time ago, doesn't it? With all that being said, should we cross over to the news desk and see what was happening to the UK in 2011?
Let's do it. So, 2011, some big news, if you're a royalist. On the 29th of April, Prince William and Catherine Middleton married at Westminster Abbey in London. It was a major national event watched by millions around the world. Fairy tale prince and his bride.
Did you watch it?
I did. I remember going around to my sister's flat in Crouch Hill to watch it. We had the Union Jacks out. We had a little kind of rolling smorgasbord, buffet style. Watched it. Obviously, primary aim was to have a few bevies. But yeah, I mean, it was a huge deal, wasn't it? It was a huge deal. Do you remember her sister Pippa's bum? I mean, that's all that anyone remembers, really.
I know. I watched it. I was at work, and I used to work in an English language school for adults, and we had the TV on, we had bunting and flags and stuff, and we just got absolutely hammered at work watching it. And it's interesting because I was a royalist then. And it's quite interesting. It wasn't until I did my PhD, I realised the systems of inequality and power which keep people poor. the gaslighting that's gone on. I've absolutely turned 180 degrees on it. So let's crash on to something else. Oh, this is not very cheery. On the 23rd of June, Levi Belfield, who's 3 years into a life sentence for the murder of 2 young women and the attempted murder of a third, is found guilty of murdering Amanda Millie Dowler, the Surrey teenager who disappeared in March 2002 and whose remains were found in Hampshire 6 months later. It's grim, wasn't it?
Yeah, that really is grim. That's so tragic in itself, but subsequent events found it to be even more tragic in a way. So we move on to the news of the world phone hacking scandal, and it's in full swing this year. Earlier in the year, on the 21st of January, Andy Coulson, the former editor of the News of the World, resigned from his post as David Cameron's communications director, citing continued coverage of events connected to my old job at the News of the World. So, former editor of the News of the World goes on to be a communications director for the government. Questionable.
I know. What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, this is a big And then on a similar topic, on the 7th of July, after months of allegations that its journalists had hacked into the mobile phones of celebrities, politicians, and high-profile crime victims like Millie Dowler over the last decade, it's announced that the News of the World will cease publication after its final edition on the Sunday, the 10th of July. It's been in circulation for 168 years. I mean, this was massive, wasn't it? To bring down the News of the World. It was huge. Gosh.
It really was. And to hack that poor girl's phone just shows how unscrupulous the gutter press had got, that low form of journalism. And that's the fake shakeout of a job as well.
Absolutely.
But also, talk about Game of Thrones and talk about Succession and the likes. You know, in Succession, higher-ups escape punity, don't they?
Yeah, of course they do. Back to those systems of inequality and oppression, isn't it? The higher up the more you get away with. It's bloody terrible.
Now, I wish I could give you better news, but in August of 2011, there's widespread rioting, looting and arson across the country, beginning in London and then followed by other English cities following the police shooting of Mark Duggan in Tottenham. The unrest lasts several days and led to thousands of arrests.
Gosh, I remember it all kicking off, didn't it? It was fairly grim as well. And I remember, because it was going to be the Olympics the year after, and it was like, this was the image. I remember that big department store in Croydon burning down and stuff, and this is the image London's giving to the world. And everyone was like, oh my God. But yeah, people were unhappy, weren't they?
They were unhappy. And it was a long, hot summer that summer as well. But yeah, I mean, the optics weren't great. You know, come next year, the Olympics and, Britannia is great again. Some would question that was the last time Britannia was great, judging by the 14 years of shit we waded through with the Conservatives, but let's not get political at this point.
Oh, for more depressing news, on the 23rd of July, the singer-songwriter Amy Winehouse is found dead at her London home. She's 27. She joins the 27 Club, doesn't she? Looking back, it was pretty grim, wasn't it? It was like the press was just circling her like vultures waiting for her to die. And every day there'd be some tabloid story about she'd got new track marks on her arm or on her feet. She was injecting heroin to her toes, this kind of stuff. And it just seemed like when she did die, it was like, finally, you know? It was like, I mean, it seemed inevitable, didn't it? It was so sad.
It's so tragic, and it just kind of lends to the story about the News of the World. They hounded that poor girl. The same way 10 years earlier, maybe, Britney Spears went through the whole thing, but also we're all guilty of it to a certain extent because we're all fascinated by it.
Yeah. It's that car crash effect. You can't not look at it, can you? It's terrible. It's human nature, I guess. But yeah, really sad.
It really is. Okay, so on the 31st of August, mobile internet use reaches 50% of the population in the UK, according to the Office for National Statistics, or the ONS, to you and me and people in the know.
Yes.
As of January 2023, this figure now stands at 97.8% of the population.
Wow. Gosh, everybody's on their phones on the internet, aren't they? With the ruin of us all, I tell you. On the 10th of October, the trial of Vincent Tabak, who was accused of murdering British landscape architect Joanna Yates, begins at Bristol Crown Court. The police initially suspected and arrested Christopher Jeffries, Yates's landlord, who lived in another flat in the same building. He was subsequently released without charge, but was vilified in the press. Do you remember? That's such a shit. I mean, again, back to the press, just like getting it wrong and treating somebody, hounding them, but poor man. I mean, and it was just that he had all this accusations for him that he looked weird, he was creepy, he was all this kind of stuff, and it was all bollocks.
Yeah, all because he just looked a little odd That's it.
Yeah.
Probably quite unassuming guy, and they just took it and ran with it. It's just they can't help themselves, and they pinpoint someone. Look at Meghan Markle now. She's been in the news last week for riding in a limo in Paris, and the pearl clutching going on by the Mail and the Sun. How dare she besmirch Princess Diana's name by filming herself in a limo in Paris? This is a direct attack. Oh, this is going to be the end of Harry and Meghan. William's furious. Like, fucking get a life. Come on. Oh,
Get a fucking life. Yeah, me too. Yeah. Me too. Just go out and do something, for God's sake.
Just go for a walk in the country and look at the trees and listen to the birds. Come on.
Yes.
We're on fire today, weren't we? We were going to record this yesterday where we couldn't really be asked, so I'm pleased we waited.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, on the 21st of October, London's St Paul's Cathedral is forced to close its doors to visitors for the first time since the Second World War after Occupy London protesters set up camp on its doorstep.
I remember that big protest, because I used to go do guided walks around there quite a lot, and it was there for ages, wasn't it?
But then there's people going, oh, you want to bring down capitalism, but you'll still walk over the road to Starbucks to get a coffee. And then one of the ladies said, who was protesting, was like, well, yeah, that's the point. Where else can we get our coffee from? These global conglomerates are just taking over everywhere, and you cannot buy anything unless you buy it from a big, massive multinational company who's using sweatshops in India and taking all these profits and treating their workers like shit. But where else do we go to buy things?
Yep.
So
Anyway, get a thermos. And finally, some good news as part of our new company policy to end the year on a good news story. In 2011, a big breakthrough was made in treating children with severe combined immunodeficiency syndrome, sometimes called bubble boy syndrome. A team at Great Ormond Street Hospital and the Institute of Child Health successfully used gene therapy on several children with this inherited immune disorder. The treatment restored their immune function, greatly reducing the risk of serious infections, and allowed them to lead much more normal lives.
How lovely.
Lovely.
Yes. That's when science can advance for good reasons. I think I might need to live in a bubble. The amount of colds I'm getting. I've never been like this before. Normally, I sail through winter without flu, cold, sniffles, or anything. This year, I've just had one after the other. I need to get myself checked out.
Well, maybe it's because you don't see people much these days.
Yes, because I am turning into a recluse.
It's the writer in you, darling.
I know.
Hammering away at that typewriter like Angela Lansbury. It's not good for you, love. You need to get out and smell the nature.
Yeah. Do you know what? I need to go to an independent podcast awards.
Last time I mentioned it, just drop it in.
Mind you, I'll probably come back with fuck all awards and a bloody litany of viruses.
Yes, probably. Look forward to that. Should we have a look at what was on television in 2011?
Let's do it. So there's lots of big hitters in 2011. First off, Downton Abbey on ITV was a major hit in the UK and abroad. By 2011, it had become a ratings juggernaut with its second season airing. The show would pull in over 11 million viewers for some episodes. Now, I really enjoyed Downton Abbey for what it was. I mean, it was bubblegum TV, wasn't it, really? But with gorgeous frocks.
Yeah, I hated it. I couldn't watch it. It was just riddled with so much inaccuracy. I just couldn't bear it. And I hated it because it was like that chocolate box. It's like that kind of show. It's like a panacea for a certain type of person who misses empire and who wants the restoration of the class system and feels secure in this old past that never really existed. So I just hated it. I'm so sorry. Crashing on.
Tell us how you really feel.
I'll sit on the fence on this one. Also on ITV, The X Factor is still one of the UK's most watched entertainment shows in 2011. That year, Little Mix won, the first girl group to do so, and the show's final drew over 13 million viewers. Little Mix have been around since 2011. That's amazing, isn't it?
I can't believe it. I can't. Blimey. On BBC One, Sherlock had become a massive fan favourite for its clever writing and modern twist on the classic detective, starring Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman. The show's fan base exploded in 2011. That was huge, wasn't it? I didn't like it.
I was not a huge fan. I thought it was a bit too smart for its own good. And it's got a bit of its own arse, I think. I liked it at the beginning, but then it just got a bit too clever by half. Also on BBC One, the fantasy series Merlin, based on the legend of King Arthur, remains hugely popular with younger audiences and families. In 2011, the show's in its fourth season and continues with strong ratings.
I never really watched Merlin. No, it just didn't grab my attention, but then I guess it probably wasn't aimed at me.
No, exactly. It was fine. It was a thing.
Too busy making television at this point, darling, to watch
Yes,
it.
you were, darling. Yeah.
Something I did watch, and I watched this day, Strictly Come Dancing, was still a consistent ratings hit at this point, and it continues to be, actually. Harry Judd from McFly won in 2011 with around 12 million viewers tuning in for the final/finale.
Yes, that was a good year. I seem to remember of Strictly, I think. I enjoyed that year. I mean,
Yes.
Harry was also pretty easy on the eye.
Big arms.
Darling. Let's not objectify Harry Judd anymore. Doctor Who is still a big hitter in 2011 with Matt Smith's second season as the 11th Doctor this year. The show had massive fan engagement and cultural relevance, and it's this season which sees the show really take off in the States.
Oh. Now, has it got a really big fan base in the United States? Because the classic series did, didn't it?
It wasn't that big. It was very much a cult thing, but it was a cult show that was dedicated, but it really blew up in this year in the States and continues to be a big cultural lodestone in the US.
Any rumblings about the next Doctor Who, the next series? It's all gone a bit quiet, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. Absolutely nothing. So,
Are you okay, though? Have you dried up? Have you scabbed over?
yes. I'll pick the scab off as and when I need to, darling. Should we have a look at what was in the top 10 of the music charts the week beginning the 17th of April 2011? Now, we're going to do the top 10 because we've got a lot to get through. And also, we suspect we won't know any of the songs.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first at number 10?
So, number 10 is Don't Hold Your Breath by Nicole Scherzinger.
We're going to know all the names, but we're not going to know any of the songs, I think. At number 9, Buzzin' Man featuring 50 Cent. Next.
Yes. Beautiful People, Chris Brown and Benny Benassi. Rather significantly at number 7 for you, darling.
Oh, yes. Number 7, we've got S&M by Rihanna, who's obviously, I don't know if she's in with Chris Brown at the time until he batters her, doesn't he?
That was a dark period, wasn't it? Stone Cold Classic at number 6, something I don't often say about Adele, but Someone Like You. I mean, who's not to love that one? Someone Like You.
Yeah. Crushing on. Number 5.
Just me then.
Honestly, yeah. Number 5, I just can't get enough. The Black Eyed Peas. I wonder if that's a cover of the Depeche Mode song. I suspect it's not.
Number 4 is Sweat by Snoop Dogg. No.
Number 3, E.T. by Katy Perry featuring Kanye West. Yes.
Oh, 2, On the Floor, Jennifer Lopez featuring Pitbull. Now, I fail to understand how such a shit song can rise so high in the charts. Apologies to all the J-Lo fans out there.
I don't think I know
I'll
it.
sing it to you after this.
Okay, let's see what number 1 is. With Tumbleweed, number 1 is, wow, Party Rock Anthem by LMFAO and Lauren Bennett and Goon Rock. What the fuck? That was just words. That was just words put together in no particular meaning or order. As predicted, we didn't know bloody any of it. To the matter in hand. Do you want to tell us a bit about Game of Thrones, Dave?
So Game of Thrones is an American fantasy drama television series created by David Benioff and D.B. Weiss for HBO. It's an adaptation of A Song of Ice and Fire, which is a series of high fantasy novels by George R.R. Martin, the first of which is A Game of Thrones. So the show premiered on HBO in the United States on April 17th, 2011, and concluded on May the 19th, 2019, with 73 episodes broadcast over 8 seasons. It's set in the fictional continents of Westeros and Essos, and Game of Thrones has a large ensemble cast and follows several story arcs throughout the show. A prequel series, House of Dragon, was made in 2022, and a second prequel, currently in production, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, is scheduled to debut in 2026. So that's the bones of it. So, Dr. Lee, do you want to give us a rundown of Game of Thrones?
I will. I've done a synopsis of the whole thing. So imagine Lord of the Rings got absolutely bladdered on mead, threw out its moral compass and decided to turn every family gathering into a medieval bloodbath. That's basically Game of Thrones. In the land of Westeros, everyone wants to sit on a very uncomfortable chair made of swords, and they'll do literally anything to get it. Lie, scheme, murder, marry relatives, or occasionally turn into dragons. There are Starks who keep saying winter is coming, like it's a weather forecast that'll fix everything. Lannisters who pay their debts but never their therapy bills, and a lot of people with complicated hair making very bad decisions. Over 8 chaotic seasons, the show juggles epic battles, unexpected deaths, and so many betrayals, you'll start side-eyeing your own friends. There's magic, zombies, dragons, and enough nudity to make your nana drop her sherry. Eventually, after years of political chess and emotional trauma, someone finally wins the throne, only for the writers to flip the board over and set it on fire. It's Shakespeare with swords and proof that in Westeros, no one is safe, not even the plot. Discuss.
Now, we watched the first episode and I found it really useful because this was obviously a show I loved, followed over all the seasons, but it was really nice to see it brought back to basics and the stories all starting to kick off. And it was just like putting on a warm little comfort blanket, really, just seeing everybody in happier times before it all kicked off. One of the things I really did like about this show, before we go into all the problematic elements and discuss things in detail, was its unpredictability. Sean Bean was essentially the main character of the first series, wasn't he? And it went through the psycho effect, basically. At the end of the season, Sean Bean was no more. What was really familiar about this series was the fact that you got attached to these characters, but it was so unpredictable. These characters could die at any time. So the stakes were really high for everybody, especially if you didn't know anything about the series. All of a sudden, like you say, there would be a bloodbath and several of your favourite characters that would be it. Gone. And that really highlighted how high stakes this Game of Thrones was for the characters involved, but also for the viewer watching it. I found it was really entertaining in that way, and no other TV show had done that.
Yes, it was certainly true. The idea that anybody could be popped off at any second was really powerful. Until the end, when the characters just became superpowers, and lots of characters were in situations where they should have died and didn't, and it just seemed to be a bit silly. But it lost its own internal logic towards the end of it. I had a similar experience watching this. When it first came on and the music kicked in, I was like, oh my God, I love it, blah, blah, blah. But then I actually found this quite a disturbing and deeply problematic show. And it's quite interesting that within its own lifetime, Game of Thrones is affected by events and what's happening in feminism at the time. And it has to, because it's a real problem with its representation of women in many different levels. It has lots of complex women characters, which is great. Who doesn't love a bit of Cersei Lannister when she kicks off? She's fucking fantastic. But their empowerment often comes through masculine coded power. So it's violence, cruelty, or sexual manipulation. So one of the arguments about Thrones is that when Dany, Arya, Sansa, Brienne are brutally and remorselessly murdering people, it's not empowering. It's just more violence. Violence is just violence, And the big problem for me with this show was the jiggle, the tits and arse. And it becomes quite clear as it goes on that there's a lot of naked women in there as kind of wallpaper and to keep straight male viewers watching. And it was particularly in this scene, we get 4 sex workers, all naked. None of the men are naked at all. And then we see Emilia Clarke playing Daenerys. It's her first acting job. Naked, getting poured by her brother, boobs out, and then she gets married and then basically gets raped. And it's like, wow. And I read an interview with Emilia Clarke, and obviously as the show went on, she had written into a new no nudity contract. But at the beginning, it's a new actress, she says, you'll do anything. And she wondered what the catch was. She was reading the script and she went, there's the catch. She'd only been on a film set twice, she says. And she says, now I'm on a film set completely naked with all these people. I don't know what I'm meant to do. I don't know what's expected of me. I don't know what you want. I don't know what I want. What's your take on the jiggle, the tits and arse?
Well, I think, you mentioned a couple of points there about a lot of the female characters displaying masculine traits of violence juxtaposed with this jiggle TV, the representation of women's bodies. I think with the first point about the violence, you could argue that these women were represented to be having to survive in a male-dominated world by playing them at their own game, and that is the game that is played. That's very much the ethos of these kingdoms that they inhabit, that women are very much seen as second-class citizens, very much seen as pawns in the game. For example, they're set up to marry into other families. They're used as political collateral and everything. So you could argue that these strong women like Cersei, and then ultimately people like Sansa, are playing the men at their own game. But then counteract with these strong women, you've got this exploitation of actors and female characters in the show. You could quite easily have told these same stories without seeing all this TNA, you know what I mean? In particular, it was quite striking when Daenerys stripped off, because all she was doing was getting into a bath. Dany gets married to this Dothraki leader, played by Jason Momoa, and it very much makes it clear that she doesn't want to have sex with him on their wedding night, but he takes her virginity anyway, so that ultimately it's non-consensual sex. So I did think that was pretty gratuitous, and I can understand Emilia Clarke's sentiments completely on that. And then the scene with Tyrion and the sex workers, he was with a sex worker, and there was a lot of flesh from the female on display. And then 3 more sex workers came into the room, and it was literally like a Benny Hill sketch, the way these women were just objectified. It was there primarily to show tits and arse. That was it.
You got the sense that they're just there purely to keep the straight male viewer watching. It was completely superfluous to the plot, and the show becomes known for becoming jiggle TV. The other thing bringing later seasons is it uses rape in a really unsavory way, Game of Thrones. There's this scene in season 4 where consensual sex scene between 2 characters in the book, which is Jaime and Cersei, brother and sister, is made into a rape in the TV version. And then in season 5, Sansa, another character, is raped really horribly. And her character says, it made me strong. It's like rape makes her strong. It doesn't, you're a strong woman already. The rape hasn't made you bloody strong. And remember the lovely Shireen, who was Stannis' daughter? She gets burnt at the stake. It's horrifying. She's a young girl. She must be 13 or 14, and she's burnt, and her screams are so awful. It just seems there's a lot of violence done towards women, especially in the early part of the early seasons, that just feels a little bit icky now when you watch it. And
yeah, it does seem as though there's a lot of sexual violence against women used as entertainment. In particular, this episode as well, at the Dothraki wedding where Khal Drogo marries Daenerys. The wedding celebrations centre around Dothraki sex workers competing to have sex with the male guests there. It struck me as though these women weren't giving consent as such, but they were competing for senior figures in the Dothraki tribe to have sex with them, even fighting each other. Sex was used as collateral for these women. They were the lowest common denominator in the scenario. So that just felt really icky to me watching it this time round. I mean, I think when I watched it first time round, I didn't even think about that. I was watching the main action because this is kind of like a throwaway secondary action. Thought that's unnecessary in this scene. What is that adding to this scene apart from the degradation of these women?
Absolutely. And it's interesting because the show does address this issue. So in later seasons, we get parity of male and female nudity. And I'd like to, if I can, just touch on the Me Too movement, because what happens to Thrones, there happens a lot of, and it makes us all think about representations of sexual violence, because like you, when I first watched this, it didn't even bat an eyelid. You know, female nudity on TV and jiggle TV was something that we were just used to. So Me Too, phrase first coined in 2006, explodes in 2017 when the actress Elisa Milano tweets, "If you've been sexually harassed or assaulted, write Me Too as a reply to this tweet." And within 24 hours, millions of people, mostly women, are sharing their stories on social media about being raped, about being molested, about being put in horrible positions. There's a huge public reckoning across industries, entertainment, media, politics, everywhere. And so suddenly the idea that you just willingly accept female nudity because it's just a thing is thrown into sharp relief. It's like, well, people start to question it. And the movement inspires workplace reforms, new policies on sexual harassment, and broader discussions about power, consent, and accountability. Now, thinking back to what Emilia Clarke was saying, it wasn't until 2019 that the Directors UK publishes its first guidelines for scenes involving nudity and simulated sex. So before that, it was just a free-for-all. And I saw, Gavin and Stacey actress who was in Love Actually, that abomination.
Joanna Page.
Yes, because she's got some nude scenes. And I saw her recently talking about those nude scenes, and just like, we were just thrown into it. You just felt really uncomfortable doing it. So 2019 is when we get these guidelines put in. Apparently, before 2019, you could go to an audition and be asked to strip off, take your clothes off in an audition. You know, there was nothing to say you couldn't do that. And performers often felt they had no choice but to do this stuff, like Emilia Clarke did. It's interesting, and we see Thrones start to change. But I think what's telling is that when the nudity and sexual violence against women is decreased, they've got no idea what to do with the female characters. So Daenerys becomes insane, riffing on the old female hysterical trope. Cersei just gets killed off in one of the huge anticlimaxes of the show. She gets about 14 lines in the last season, the whole season. Arya has sex completely out of turn for character. Brienne has a heart broken, you know, and Sansa claims that men abusing her is the only reason she survived that long. It's like, I think the show really does have, for all its representations of complex female characters, people like Diana Rigg is fantastic, but I think it does have a problem with women.
Looking back on it now, I mean, we both enjoyed Game of Thrones hugely, and we watched these scenes thinking, okay, well, yeah, this is just normal TV, because this is what we've been used to growing up, especially, you know, growing up in the 70s and 80s, the 80s in particular, watching films like Basic Instinct, where sex was the main currency of a film or a TV show. What were we watching the other day? Oh, Secret Diary of a Call Girl. You know, that was framed as showing women being empowered, but still showing a lot of flesh for male titillation, even though they would deny that was the main reason for the show. But I mean, TV is all about making money. It's show business. You know, it's a business. And what is going to get more viewers, predominantly male viewers, is female flesh.
Yeah. It's also a little bit racist. Game of Thrones. The show, the world is overwhelmingly white and was criticised at the time. The few non-white characters are often placed in servant or exotic roles and kind of echo colonial stereotypes, if you like. Dany is basically the white saviour. The Dothraki, first of all, are characters call them savages. You know, they're clearly an ethnic group of people that Dany then just burns down. And while Dany's power grows and she's grouping all these people together, there were lots of scenes of Dany surrounded by brown and black faces rescuing these people, which I just found a little bit... The optics aren't great in that as well, you know. And one of the things that House of the Dragon has done is really address the diversity of the cast, because even at the time it was out, they're saying it's very white. Westeros is very white. When Missandei's killed, it was criticised. Missandei is a mixed race character who's one of Daenerys' servants. And it's a kind of classic fridging moment. She gets fridged, basically, which is when a character dies in order to motivate other characters. Usually, if it's a black character, white characters get motivated to do something because of their death. So it doesn't do it very well, unfortunately. And again, I think I probably did notice at the time that it was very white, and it just seemed to be one of those things. Do you remember the Lord of the Rings series? The fuss that they'd cast a lot of actors of colour in Lord of the Rings, in the TV show, the Amazon things. And the fan base went nuts. You can't be this, it can't be this, it's not right, blah, 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 blah. It's like, for God's sake, it's a book about fucking goblins and orcs and things, you know. So yeah, it's just unfortunate looking back on it, how white and the kind of tropes that the show draws upon to tell its stories.
It does feel as though it's representing really ancient stereotypes. It's very much based on war, on oaths and traditions, which are very typically male dominated and rooted in violence. And also what I touched upon before about the representation of women used as collateral, as pawns in this game of succession, about bloodlines, about survival of the fittest, who's going to produce the strongest heir, who's going to merge these two houses together, the idea of marriage as a political act rather than an act of love. Yeah, it's just very rooted in traditional stereotypes. But it really struck me about, in this first episode, Arya Stark, who's this young girl who goes on a big journey throughout the episodes. She was a nice example of blurring these gender roles. She was very much seen as the tomboy who'd attached herself to these male-dominated areas of wanting to be a fighter. So she kind of blurred it a little bit for me, which I thought was quite interesting, knowing her journey moving forward. She was in stark contrast. See what I did there? She was in stark contrast to Sansa, who was very much sitting around doing her sewing. She's being touted as being betrothed to the son of the king, Joffrey. I mean, that went well, didn't it? But there was a nice contrast there between Arya and Sansa from the first episode, from that setup.
Yes, absolutely. And Arya is a character that you can root for because she's rebelling against the, you know, but the tomboy trope in itself could be seen as problematic, you know. Even the books, if we think about the source material it comes from, the books were a little bit icky. I mean, Sansa says she's 13 and the characters are 12, 13-year-old and they're having sex in the book. And I was always a bit, I tried to read them. I was a little bit, I'm not very comfortable with this, actually.
Well, yeah, there are themes of underage sex and incest. One of the main stories and threads running through is Cersei, who is the wife of the king, and her brother Jaime, both colluding politically and sexually. So yeah, incest, problematic. Underage sex, extremely problematic.
Yeah, and just to briefly touch on Tyrion, and then I will stop ranting, I promise you. I won't go into how homophobic the show is either. Tyrion is widely celebrated. He's funny, he's clever, he's charismatic. But there's something called the compensation narrative, where it's the idea that disabled people have to make up for their physical difference through intellect, charm, or cunning. Again, they just can't just be. They have to, there's some compensatory factor about it. And most of Tyrion's storylines focus on how others react to his body rather than how he experiences the world. So he becomes kind of, later on, a kind of comic or tragic archetype, really, as opposed to a real person. But I'm going to stop going, wow, 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 wow. I don't think I've been too horrific.
No, I don't think you have. And I think what is really striking is the fact that, as we've said several times, that we really enjoyed watching this show. And a lot of these things passed us by. So it's really good to re-examine it through open eyes, through a problematic lens. We're not dissing anybody who adores this show at all, because, it is an epic story full of intrigue and twists and turns. That is a really enjoyable story. But, watching it round through different eyes, having done this podcast for 18 months now, you definitely watch things differently, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, and also, as we've discussed, society has changed. You can't do this stuff anymore. And it's amazing that this is 2011 and how much it's changed in 14 years, specifically thinking about representations of women, as you were talking about, the intimacy coordination on set and stuff. Yeah, it's also quite homophobic, but let's not go there. I think we've probably said enough.
Yeah, let's keep it short. So anyway, great show, problematic. That's all we need to say, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
What would you give this show out of 10?
It's really difficult, actually. I'm really struggling with it because obviously if you'd asked me in 2011, I would have said 10, no shadow of a doubt, 5 stars, Okay, I'm going to give it 7.5 swords out of 10. I think. What would you give it? I'm
going to give it 8 dragon eggs out of 10 because I do love it. I do love it. And you can watch problematic shows and enjoy them, as we know. But and everyone's going to have an opinion on it about the seriousness of what we've discussed. Or some people might just say, well, this is just a fact of life. This is the way the world is. So I really enjoyed Game of Thrones at the time, and I enjoyed watching the episode that we watched yesterday. Yeah, so 8 dragon eggs out of 10.
That seems fair. So, right, with all that being said, let's turn our back on Westeros and do something a bit more highbrow next week, darling. What do you think?
I think so. I'm ready for some intellectual stimulation. So what I suggest we watch is The Benny Hill Show.
Let's do it. We don't know what year we're going to have yet, listeners, where the TeleTARDIS will take us, but I suspect whichever particular year we go from, the themes will be the same and we'll know what to expect pretty much. Clearly, this is going to be a deeply problematic show, but again, we have the nice little tension as we both loved it when we were kids, didn't we?
We did. What was not to love when you were a kid? Yeah. The fast-forward chase sequences, slapstick humour, and Benny Hill, from my recollection, was a pretty good comedian, pretty good writer. So let's see what unfolds before our very eyes next week on The Benny Hill Show.
Indeed. So until next week, our Dave, it's been a pleasure.
It has been a real pleasure, Dr. Lee. And I shall see you tomorrow at PG Towers in preparation for the Independent Podcast Awards, or Reservoir.
A reservoir.